Guilty Gear Strive is a fighting game that came out in 2021. When it was announced, between its many appealing and cool characters, one that caught my attention the most was the vampire samurai Nagori Yuki, who kind of sold me the game and the entire Guilty Gear franchise by itself. In the story of Strive, Nagori Yuki first appears when Happy Chaos unseals him from his meditative hibernation. Since he's bound by Happy Chaos's magic, he is forced to act like a Yojimbo for them. And then in this section, which basically boils down to that American film with the White House, you know, the bit before they do a homage with big quotation marks to the end of Evangelion, he acts as a sort of Alice in Wonderland White Rabbit allegory, which seems to be fitting with the rabbit army that Chaos makes, and even with Chaos being a sort of Mad Hatter Society man. Which I wonder how it would go, since the New Testament design also looks like a sort of Mad Hatter thing. I don't know, it might be coincidental, but I don't know. Anyway, he helps in the final battle. So just looking at Nagori Yuki, there are various elements that catch the eye, but one does so particularly, which is his helmet mask thing, which kind of looks like a Min Yoroi mixed with a Hanya mask, which forms around Nagori Yuki's face, in a way not too dissimilar to characters in General Goal and the Wizard in Bleach. On the topic of Bleach, one could say that even the design of Tozin and Komamura, when put together, could kind of make you think of Nagori Yuki. Also, I guess the film Blade could easily count as an inspiration. I haven't seen it yet, but as I'm recording this, but I'm going to see it probably after I'm recording this. Maybe I should do it before, but anyway. In interviews, Daisuke Ishiwatari, who is the guy behind a lot of Guilty Gear, like designed music and everything, mentioned that Nagori Yuki's character was based on a historical figure, which I assume it kind of just refers to only one African-born slave turned samurai, which is Yasuke, who served under Oda Nobunaga during the Warring States period, which is called the Sengoku Jidai, who Nagori Yuki also refers to as Kazusanosuke, which was one of his many names. I shall now enter full conspiratory tinfoil hat mode. In the interaction between Nagori Yuki and Chip Zanuff, it is discovered that the Tsuyoshi style, which is the style that Chip was taught by his master Tsuyoshi, who worked in the Assassin Syndicate, is based on the Korito style invented by Kazusanosuke. Korito, by the way, is part of the name of Akechi Mitsuhide, who was called Korito Hyuga no Kami, in, you know, when he was called like that, and also was the one who betrayed Oda Nobunaga at Honnoji Temple in what is now referred to as the Honnoji Incident, where the entire premises were burnt and Nobunaga died, even though his body was never retrieved, so there's a lot of conspiratory things around it. If you were to ponder for a second though, and also apply the aforementioned tinfoil hat, you could reach the interesting to think of conclusion that would imply that the reason why a member of the Assassin Syndicate would know a style based on the one invented by Oda Nobunaga would be that he learned it from a member of the Assassin Syndicate who would be old enough to know it. Someone that Nagori Yuki also refers to as his own master, which is also referenced by his falling animation, that maybe also passed vampirehood to him. And if you think about it, the founder of the Assassin Syndicate, Slayer, the immortal vampire, could actually fit the role quite easily. And like, if you start to think with this point of view, which is that Slayer and Oda Nobunaga are the same person, a lot of elements kind of come together quite elegantly. For one, Nobunaga's interest with the West and its culture, and Slayer dandyism have some interesting parallels. Also with how Guilty Gear is very keen with specifying when a name is a pseudonym or not, usually because they like to put musical references in surnames, but Naguyuki, which is a name stated in interviews that he assumed later on and is not his born name in Japan, and Slayer stand out as self-given, which also reflects on how lords and samurai of that era changed names a lot, like Yafe mentioned, Koreto, Hyuge no Kami, and because, like for example, Kazu Sanosuke, Kichihoshi, and Saburo are all names that Oda Nobunaga used in his life. He also signed himself as the Demon of the Sixth Heaven in some letters. Even when seeing Oda Nobunaga's kind of iconic moustache, one could kind of see how, with time, it could have later developed into Slayer's set of moustache. And then I guess that's enough of historical game theory for now. So let us move to other elements, like his name, Nagori, which translates to lingering snow, which is a term that refers to out-of-season snow during the spring, which is also a line in his theme song, What Do You Fight For?
The snow falling in spring, moon hits during the day, one with self and time.
In which various elements of his personality and narrative do come out. Some of the lines at the beginning of the song exemplify his state of being as a demi-human, as he feels like he's like the snow falling in spring, the moon hanging during the day, as he was an African in medieval Japan and is a samurai in modern times, in many regards seemingly anachronistic but self-evident.
You know what demi-humans are, right? Vampires, werewolves, that sort of thing. Well, if you thought gears were neat, get a load of this. Demi-humans transcend genetics, physics, and even time itself. But plainly, their very existence is essentially a bug in our world's programming. Unlike you and me, they don't have IDs. They're the same existences across independent segments. And because of that, they subconsciously contain information about parallel universes, meaning that demi-humans can act as terminals that allow us access to parallel worlds. Though obviously, as dwellers of infinite timelines, they need to downconvert to our simple definition of plank time in order to exist in what we call the real world. And heavens to Betsy, does that make finding actionable information on them difficult? Like finding one particle of sand across the vastness of the universe. Did you know there was a guy named Bedman who managed to delete his own ID and became a multi-dimensional being? Anyway, that's where Nagori Yuki comes in. He wasn't born a demi-human, he became one. A hybrid, if you will. I can access different timelines by following little references in his old memories. Once I do that, the rest is simple.
Oh, good. I was worried this might be complicated.
The rest of the theme is almost like a dialogue between the two sides of Nagori Yuki, as his instinctual self is actually not fully under his control, which I presume is how Chaos managed to control him during the Crusades and the main story, which is I'll talk about it later. The guilt of the action Chaos made him do in these times and his not full control of his vampiric side made him decide to hibernate under a building, seemingly also influenced by his spiritual creed inclinations, as he seemed to be following precepts of Buddhism in the attempt of abstaining from his uncontrollable desire. He seems to have also studied, or at least learned, of other religions, as he references things of it, like the Temptations, which is a Christian episode which also kind of parallels Buddha's encounter with Mara and his daughters, who were sent to tempt the Buddha before his enlightenment. This element of instinct and intellect is also referenced by Happy Chaos in their arcade story mode.
Why have you been chosen?
I've got equal parts hope and resentment circulating through my body. If humanity doesn't learn to coexist, their survival instincts will swallow them whole. And until one or the other comes, I'm not going away. Maybe we'll find a possible past next time.
And it could be hinting at it being an element of major importance in the new story. These elements are also further exemplified by Nagoriyuki's reaction in the encountering Baiken, who has now found a new meaning in her life, and now also has a theme with a lot of Buddhist chants. Like, his stage literally has Buddha rockets, and even in an alternative reality, a version of him says which is a Buddhist term that, for what I managed to gather, could mean both a desire for nothingness, which is also referenced by his second theme song.
I want the freedom of a cloud and infinite storm of nothingness.
And regret, which is also recalled in the base version of Baiken's arcade mode.
さっきの内見は知っている。喜びに浸る。憐れみを送る。高め合う剣。だが、いずれとも違う。
さあな。俺もまだ何なのか知らねえ。だが名前はある。残念剣。
響きが出せ。
残念剣。間違いなく俺が知る中で最強だ。お前の死は
二回り近く年下のガキだ。
勝てぬはずよ。またいずれ稽古をつけてくれ。
上々だな。だろ、姉さん。
まあな。まあそうだ。悪くない。これがこれからの俺の道。
One key aspect of Nagoriyuki's personality is that he's actually very caring and fears hurting people the most, especially when he's not in control. This, for example, can be seen in the story mode, where he, even while under Chaos's control, he gives advice to his opponents on how to beat him. It can be seen in his design, which has him wearing patches and belts that remind of police lines with written on them as a warning to keep people away. It's explicit when he's performing his Blood Rage Super Zansits, where he screams at his opponents to get out of the way of one of the strongest hitting moves of the entire game. And it is even present in voice lines in a mirror match where he admonishes his opponent for following his same path, and even in his taunts where he suggests to his opponent onigiri, the nutritional value and ease of consumption.
A single serving of onigiri provides energy, carbohydrates, protein, fat, calcium, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, iron, zinc, and fiber.
Danger.
One can add fillings to include additional sources of nutrients to their liking.
Negative penalty.
In addition to energy sources that fuel the brain and body, it also includes nutrients to help maintain them and build muscle. The great thing about onigiri is that they are highly portable and have a long shelf life. One does not need to be concerned about when and where to eat them, and they require no dishware to serve. Consuming one raises one's muscle glycogen levels, essential for a warrior heading to battle. They are also quick to satisfy an empty stomach. This is because as the rice cools down, the starch grows resistant, making it harder to absorb into the body. In other words, it's an easy snack to avoid overeating. It's tasty too. Your fundamentals are flawed. Strong emotions or motivations may lend you immense strength for a time. But those with unfaltering foundations are able to respond to such momentary explosive power with ease. Furthermore, what keeps such foundations solidly intact is food.
Danger.
This is an onigiri, a nutritious food
Negative
that has been
penalty.
eaten in the Far East since ancient times. I can tell you more about onigiri when we have a free moment.
And even in his victory lines, where he encourages his opponents to train better, or even when he's abducted by aliens in Gold Lewis Dickinson's victory screen, where he recommends the aliens to put some warmer clothes on to avoid catching a cold.
What is it?
You'll catch a cold in that.
Anyone there?
It is very cute and neat.
How do they always run away so fast?
One element of his designs I really find cool is his mask, which reminds, as I said before, of a Hanya mask, which is a mask used in North Theatre, which represents the spirit of a woman contorted by sadness and grief, which leads to her anger. The cool thing about North mask is that they represent different emotions at the same time, and also kind of tell a story by themselves. If you were to, let's say, hide half of a mask, you could see that the scary Oni-like mouth that intimidates you, but if you were to hide the other half, you could see the sorrowful eyes, which the scary mouth also seems to be trying to hide. Usually when a character has a Hanya design motif under it, is usually attributed to a character that fakes to be aggressive to hide a sorrowful past. One that comes to mind is Goro Majima from Yakuza, for example. So if we were to turn back on Nagori, like the belts and patches we already discussed, the mask kind of serves the function of scaring and turning people away from him to avoid hurting them. But in this case, differently from the original mask, it is hiding his eyes, as he tries not to show his inner turmoil, which he tries to keep within himself. His horns, apart from the bunny thing I already said before, also could be partially based on Oda Nobunaga's Kabuto helmet with the big horns. Even just the way he wears his kimono under the jacket, which is also worn like a haori, is very interesting, as there are actually some sort of rules and taboos associated with kimono wearing, as usually people wear the left side over the right, and in reverse, so right over left, for the funeral. Nagori, though, who has transcended life and death by becoming a vampire, doesn't wear the left side, which is also the side of the heart, which is also present in the kanji on his helmet and on his jacket. Lastly, let's talk about Japanese period dramas, the ones about real, semi-fictional or fictional characters in various eras of the past of Japan's history. In specific, I'd like to talk about Abarenbo Shogun, which aired from January of 1978 all the way to December of 2008, starring Matsudaira-kun as Tokugawa Yoshimune, in his fictitious adventures where he went alongside common people to get rid of corruption within the capital. A massive series, as you can imagine, like that's a lot of years to think about it. And while they already discussed on the channel Kaiketsu Zubat, starring Hiroshi Miyauchi, had an Ace Attorney parody in the form of the Jamming Ninja, Abarenbo Shogun is kind of a base of a Steel Samurai parody in Ace Attorney, with also an added Ultraman in it, with the main themes also kind of similar, like here's one. And here's the other. And in the show, there's also Hiroshi Miyauchi, now acting the role of one of Yoshimune's most trusted ninjas. Anyway, apart from having the main protagonist wearing a kimono without the aside, like Nagori does in the intro of the show, one of the most iconic things the Shogun does in the series is his iconic sword rattle thing. And I'll show you as an example the time he does it in the Kamen Rider 000 collaboration film. Not sure how this came to be, but look at it. Anyway, you can bet your life that Nagori also does it as well, in his taunts, but even when in his character select intro thing. Considering that he probably was still around at this point in time, as he hibernated after the Crusades in the Guilty Gear timeline, and it also was airing when the song that his namesake comes from, which is Nagori Yuki, which is 1974. Very nice song. Let's see like 2 seconds of it. Okay, I can say with absolute certainty, without a smear of a doubt, with certain elements of my conviction, that I decided that Nagori is the kind of guy that will get emotional watching period dramas and listening to enka and folk songs. And finally, let's get to the bottom line by talking about crabs. Who doesn't like them? Nagori apparently, as according to the in-game glossary, he is listed with them as a dislike, even though I assume that it is more of a dislike in terms of food more than the animal, I imagine. This may be in reference to the Heikogani, a species of crab native to Japan, which is famous for having a pattern on his carapace, you know, the thing on the back, the shell thing, that resembles a face. The name of the Heikogani derives from the Heike clan, who lost a war against the Genji clan in the famed Dan no Ura battle. So ideally, the face of the crabs will remind of the samurai warriors who gave their lives near these waters. And legendarily, fishermen would free the faced ones back in the sea when captured out of respect. So Nagori the state of crab meat could be in reference to these credence. Or not, I don't know. I've made more wild claims in this video than this, so I hope you're on board with this headcanon. So yeah, this is it. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Goodbye.